Fire release. Let's kick things off with the flashiest fire attribute in Naruto. Yeah, there are totally a bunch of fire release jutsu out there, but let's be real. The strongest ones absolutely belong to the Uchiha. And I'm talking about two legendary names, Sasuke's Amaterasu and Madara's fire release, Great Fire Annihilation. Amaterasu is basically iconic. People call it hellfire. These black flames that burn as hot as the sun and never stop until the target is completely gone. Sounds insanely busted, right? And honestly, on a concept level, Amaterasu is absolutely top tier. It pops up exactly where the user looks, which basically makes it almost impossible to dodge in most situations. And since only the user can put the flames out, Amaterasu gives off this totally unbeatable vibe. But this is where people mix up cool and practical. So what's the actual problem with Amaterasu? It's slow, like painfully slow. The Raikage literally dodged it. And when it first activates, it only hits one concentrated spot, one tiny focal point. It doesn't have any real area of effect. On top of that, the spreading speed is ridiculously slow. We've seen multiple characters take off their burning clothes, or straight up cut off the burning part of their body before it spreads. And every single use makes your eye bleed. This jutsu is basically an assassin tool, not a battlefield weapon. Now let's talk about Madara's fire release. Great Fire Annihilation. When Madara throws this thing out, he's not aiming at one dude. He wipes out an entire zone. We're talking about a massive wall of flames, wide enough to cover a whole forest, tall enough to look like a giant tsunami made of fire crashing down. And this is the core difference. Amaterasu is a precision strike, while Great Fire Annihilation is straight-up carpet bombing. When it comes to raw destruction, nothing even comes close to Great Fire Annihilation. Madara used this monster of a jutsu to literally burn down an entire army of the allied shinobi forces during the Fourth Great Ninja War. We're talking dozens of ninja having to team up with water release just to block a tiny part of its insane power. Some people might argue that Amaterasu can't be put out, so in theory, it should be stronger. But nah, it can be sealed away, the same way you can seal any kind of jutsu or energy. Great Fire Annihilation doesn't need to be unextinguishable, because it's just way too big, way too fast, and way too overwhelmingly destructive. You don't worry about whether the flames go out or not when the whole battlefield is already turned into complete hell. And on top of that, look at the versatility. Great Fire Annihilation can totally be used to control the battlefield, split enemy forces, and create zone control. It can be comboed with other jutsu way more easily. It's basically the peak of what traditional fire release can reach. What about Amaterasu? Sure, Sasuke can control it with blaze release, Kagutsuchi, but that's an entirely different jutsu that needs another Mangekyo Sharingan ability on top. Base Amaterasu is basically a one-trick pony, even if that one trick is absolutely deadly. So what's the strongest fire release jutsu? Well, fire release in Naruto is honestly prettier than it is powerful. Kabuto literally blocked Amaterasu with a mud wall, while Tsunade was straight up wary of Madara's fire. You've already got your answer. Water release. When we talk about water release, we gotta talk about Kisame Hoshigaki and the second Mizukage. But if we're talking about the strongest water jutsu actually shown in the series, it's basically all Kisame. In Kisame's arsenal, there are two jutsu that are genuinely terrifying. The water prison shark dance technique and the water release. Great shark bullet technique. Both of them are deadly in totally different ways, but only one of them truly deserves the title of strongest water release jutsu. Let's start with the great shark bullet technique. This jutsu is insanely impressive as a concept. You create a massive shark made of water, and it can absorb chakra from the opponent's jutsu to grow even bigger and stronger. The stronger the jutsu used against it, the more dangerous it becomes. And honestly, in certain situations, this thing is a perfect counter. If you're facing someone who relies heavily on powerful ninjutsu, Great Shark Bullet will absolutely turn their own strength into a weapon against them. But here's the problem with Great Shark Bullet. It's still just a projectile, a straight-line attack. Yeah, it can absorb chakra and scale up like crazy, but a fast enough opponent can still dodge it. A smart opponent can simply avoid using ninjutsu and switch to taijutsu. It has counterplay. Now let's talk about the water prison shark dance technique. Kisame isn't just creating a shark or throwing out one attack. He literally turns the entire battlefield into a gigantic ocean, a massive water dome with himself right at the center. And here's the key point. This dome moves with Kisame. You run, it follows you. You try to escape? It completely surrounds you. This isn't an attack you can dodge or block. This is a moving prison, a battlefield that Kisame absolutely controls from top to bottom. It hits the most basic biological weakness humans have, the need to breathe. It doesn't matter how strong you are, or how many jutsu you've got in your arsenal. If you can't breathe, you die. It's that simple. And while the opponent is desperately struggling just to stay alive, trying to hold on to their last breath, Kisame is totally comfortable. He merges with Samahata, can breathe underwater, and moves freely to hunt down his target. This is straight-up tactical unfairness. Now yeah, Water Prison Shark Dance does have one weakness. It's not efficient if there are many opponents running in different directions. But here's the important part. In real high-level ninja battles, one-on-one fights are extremely common. And in those situations, Water Prison Shark Dance is absolute dominance. Wind release. When it comes to wind release, this has always been one of the most loved elements in Naruto because of how sharp and totally deadly it is. And when we talk about the strongest wind release jutsu, there are two names you just can't skip. Naruto's wind release, Rasen Shuriken, and the Sand Village's wind release, Great Cast Net. First, let's talk about the Great Cast Net. This jutsu is insanely impressive in terms of tactical control. The user creates a whole bunch of razor-sharp wind blades that overlap each other, forming a massive net that slices through targets from every angle. Its strength is that it doesn't just attack one target, it controls the entire battlefield. Once you get caught inside this wind net, dodging becomes basically impossible because moving in any direction can absolutely get you cut. And when multiple ninja combine their wind release together, Great Cast Net can totally turn the whole battlefield into a deadly maze of slicing wind. This is the perfect jutsu for large-scale combat, where you need to control and restrict the movement of an entire enemy squad. But here's the issue with Great Cast Net. It's all about control, restriction, and creating danger zones. It doesn't have that permanent damage effect. It doesn't have that one terrifying thing that truly makes a jutsu nightmare fuel. You can get cut, you can get severely wounded, but a high-level ninja with enough durability can still tank the damage and survive. Great Cast Net is strong, absolutely, but it doesn't have that finality. Now let's talk about Rasen Shuriken. When Rasen Shuriken detonates, it creates a vortex packed with millions of microscopic wind blades, and these wind blades pierce into every single cell in the body, disconnecting them from the chakra circulatory system. The target loses the ability to create and mold chakra. This damage cannot be healed by medical ninjutsu. Tsunade straight up warns that if the damage is big enough, the victim might never be able to use jutsu again. Basically, Rasen Shuriken completely shreds the opponent. This isn't an injury you can just recover from. This is the kind of attack where even if you survive, you're totally done. Some people might argue that Great Cast Net has better AoE and can hit multiple targets. And yeah, in a battlefield with dozens of enemies, Great Cast Net has its advantages. But here's the kicker. By the time Naruto masters Rasen Shuriken, especially with Nine-Tails Chakra mode, he can spam unlimited Rasen Shurikens. He can create multiple at once. He can throw them, guide them remotely, expand them mid-flight to catch dodging targets. At that point, the AoE advantage of Great Cast Net basically disappears. What really makes Rasen Shuriken the strongest wind release jutsu is that it combines literally everything you want in an ultimate technique. It's got insane raw power with a massive explosion radius. It's precise, with sharp points that can slice through rock and straight up disintegrate targets. It's fast and accurate with remote guidance. And above all, it has that unique, irreversible damage effect that no other wind release jutsu even comes close to. Great Cast Net is a tactical masterpiece, perfect for wide area control in large-scale battles. But when you need absolute devastation, when you need a jutsu that guarantees your opponent will never fight the same way again if they survive, Rasen Shuriken is the only choice. Lightning Release. Lightning Release is known for insane speed and devastating power, and it's straight up the strongest of the basic 5 elements. When we talk about the strongest lightning release jutsu, there are 2 big names. Sasuke Uchiha's Kirin and the Raikage clan's lightning release chakra mode. This is basically a showdown between one-shot annihilation and sustained combat dominance. Oh, and what about Indra's arrow? Sasuke's ultimate attack that could go toe-to-toe with Naruto's 6 Paths Ultra Big Ball Rasen Shuriken? Yeah, we're not diving into that here, that's 6 Paths level, a whole different league. In this video, we're focusing on jutsu that are actually accessible stuff you can see in normal battles to keep things fair. Now, let's talk about Kirin. This is probably one of the coolest concept jutsu in the entire series. Sasuke literally draws natural lightning straight from thunderclouds to attack. And here's the core difference. Natural lightning hits the ground in a thousandth of a second. That's speed you literally cannot react to. Kirin is strong enough to obliterate a small mountain. In terms of raw destruction, Kirin is absolutely monstrous. But here's the big issue with Kirin. Setup time. You need thunderclouds to use it. If there aren't any ready, you have to create storm conditions using powerful fire release techniques. And after you use it, the clouds dissipate, which means you basically only get one shot in a battle. Sure, you could spam Amaterasu to keep making new clouds, but that process takes time. In a high-speed fight between top-tier ninja, time is the one thing you don't have. On top of that, because Kirin requires chakra to guide and shape the lightning, you still need minimum chakra control, and most importantly, it's a single-use ultimate move. Miss that shot, and you're totally done. Now, let's talk about lightning release chakra mode. This is where things get really interesting. Instead of one big explosive attack, lightning chakra mode transforms the user into a complete combat powerhouse. It wraps your entire body in lightning chakra, boosting every single physical parameter. Strength goes through the roof. Your taijutsu basically becomes nintaijutsu. Speed skyrockets to the point where even a Sharingan can't track your movements. Only Minato's Flying Thunder God and Naruto's Ninetales Chakra mode are faster. Your defense becomes insane, with lightning literally deflecting most attacks on contact, and your nervous system gets a full-on stim boost, enhancing reflexes so much that you can dodge even Amaterasu using lightning release body flicker. And here's the key point. Lightning chakra mode isn't an attack. It's a state of being. It's active throughout combat, constantly enhancing you in every possible way. So which one's stronger? Remember, lightning chakra mode is basically a massive buff. It's insanely strong because the Raikage himself is already a beast. The guy has huge chakra reserves to maintain the buff. His body is tough enough to handle the electrical armor. He's just that strong. Kirin is strong because the attack itself is ridiculously powerful. Later, Sasuke becomes strong enough to actually summon natural lightning at will, but at the time he could use this jutsu, his eyes hadn't even evolved into Mangekyo yet. You already know what I'd pick. Earth Release. Now the most underrated element in the entire Naruto universe. Earth Release is where the real monsters live. We're talking about jutsu that can literally reshape battlefields, crush tailed beasts, and make physics itself bow down. Now, picking the strongest Earth Release technique is actually way harder than you'd think, because we've got two completely different beasts competing for the crown here. On one hand, you've got Onoki's weight manipulation techniques, which are basically reality warping hacks that let you control gravity itself. On the other hand, there's Kitsuchi's Earth Release, sandwich technique, which is pure, unfiltered destructive power on a scale that makes most other jutsu look like party tricks. Let's start with the weight manipulation duo. We're combining both the ultra-added weight rock technique and the ultralight-weight rock technique here because they're two sides of the same coin. Onoki can touch you, and suddenly you're carrying the weight of a mountain on your spine. We're not talking about just slowing you down or making you stumble. Your bones are cracking, you're getting buried into the ground, your entire body is shutting down from the pressure. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Onoki can flip that script and make himself lighter than air. This old man was flying around the battlefield like he had creative mode turned on. And we're not just talking about him making himself float. He lifted an entire island. An island. He made Gaara weightless to boost his speed against Madara. He flew straight into a meteor and stopped it with his bare hands. The strategic applications are honestly off the charts. You want to chase Onoki? Good luck, he's flying. You want to hit him? He's already dodged because he weighs nothing. You finally get close? Congratulations, now you weigh 3 tons and can't move your arms. It's the ultimate combo of offense, defense, and mobility all wrapped into one technique. But hold on, because we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the 2 continent-sized rock formations in the room. Kitsuchi's Earth Release, sandwich technique is pure devastation incarnate. When this jutsu activates, 2 massive rock slabs just materialize out of nowhere and slam together with enough force to pancake literally anything caught in between. And when I say massive, I mean these things dwarfed the demonic statue of the Outer Path. For those who don't know, That statue is basically the husk of the Ten Tails, and it's already bigger than most skyscrapers. This technique actually managed to temporarily trap the Ten Tails itself, the actual Ten Tails. Kitsuchi himself said this was his strongest technique, and when you look at what it can do, you understand why. The sheer amount of mass being moved, the speed at which those formations close in, and the crushing force generated is beyond comprehension. So here's the million-dollar question. Which one is actually stronger? Weight manipulation is very versatile and flexible. However, it has a fatal weakness. You need physical contact to apply it. Against someone like Madara or the Raikage who moves at lightning speed, getting that touch is nearly impossible. And moreover, if you want to fly, then your punch won't hurt because you're too light. But if you increase your body weight to make the punch hurt, then you become very slow. Therefore, you have to use it in coordinated combat to fully unlock its potential and power. Meanwhile, the sandwich technique can be used from range, doesn't require touch, and while it costs a ton of chakra too, you're getting that devastating power in a single massive attack rather than having to maintain it. As for me, I choose this jutsu as the strongest Earth-style jutsu. You know, most battles in the Naruto era take place on the ground, and this jutsu truly dominates the battlefield. But you know what? I bet half of you are already typing about how I'm wrong. Change my mind in the comments below. Alright, now let's move on to combined nature transformations, which people usually call Kekkei Genkai. Let's start with Ice Release. We're talking about the Yuki clan's cursed bloodline, and when I say cursed, I mean people literally hunted them down and tried to wipe them out because of how terrifying these abilities were. Now, in terms of canon techniques, we really only have two main contenders to work with, and honestly, that makes this decision easier. We've got Haku's demonic mirroring ice crystals, which is probably one of the most iconic jutsu in the entire early series, and then there's the Ice Rock Dome of Magnificent Nothingness, which is pure defense. The anime added some other techniques like certain kill ice spears and crystal wall, but we're sticking to canon here because, let's be real, if Haku had actually used those ice spears inside his mirror dome, Sasuke and Naruto would have been skewered before they could even blink. The anime sometimes creates abilities that break the internal logic of what actually happened in the story. So let's talk about why demonic mirroring ice crystals is absolutely the strongest ice release technique. On the surface, it looks straightforward. Haku creates a bunch of ice mirrors, surrounds his target, and then attacks from multiple angles. First, let's talk about the speed factor. The official databooks describe Haku's movement between mirrors as light speed. Now, whether that's literal or just hyperbole doesn't even matter, because the point is he's moving so fast that to most opponents he appears to be in every single mirror at the same time. Think about what that means in practice. You're standing inside this dome of mirrors, and suddenly Senbon needles are flying at you from every direction simultaneously. You can't predict where the next attack is coming from, because as far as your eyes can tell, Haku is everywhere at once. Sasuke, with his Sharingan, could barely start to track Haku's movements, and even then it took him time to adjust. For anyone without a dojutsu, or some kind of enhanced perception, you're basically fighting blind. You know the attacks are coming. You just have no way to defend against them because they're hitting you from literally every angle before you can even process what's happening. But here's what makes this technique truly genius from a strategic standpoint. It's a complete prison. Once Haku has you surrounded with those mirrors, you're trapped. The mirrors are incredibly durable. They don't melt against standard fire release, and if you try to attack Haku directly, he just moves to another mirror before your attack even lands. You'd need someone working from outside the dome to have any real chance of breaking you out. And even then, Haku can just form new mirrors to keep you contained or to attack your rescuers. Now, some people might argue that the Ice Rock Dome of Magnificent Nothingness should be considered because it's pure defense, and it can withstand multiple explosive tags without taking real damage. That's impressive, sure, but it's a one-dimensional technique. It doesn't control the battlefield. It doesn't give you offensive options. Demonic mirroring ice crystals, on the other hand, is offense, defense, and battlefield control all rolled into one technique. The chakra cost is significant. Haku himself admitted he couldn't maintain it indefinitely, but that's actually a good thing in terms of balancing. If this technique didn't have that weakness, it would be completely broken. As it stands, it's already one of the most overpowered techniques in early Naruto. The only reason Sasuke and Naruto survived is because Sasuke developed his Sharingan mid-fight, and Naruto tapped into the Nine Tails chakra. Against literally anyone else, this technique is a guaranteed kill. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking about those anime-only techniques and wondering why we're not considering them. Trust me, if we open that door, the scaling gets messy real fast. Wood release. When it comes to wood release, there's no debate. Sage art. Wood release. True, several thousand hands stands alone, towering above every other technique. This is the jutsu that crowned Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, ended the Warring States period, and cemented his legend as the first Hokage. The sheer scale of this technique is almost incomprehensible. The wooden statue Hashirama summons dwarfs Kurama, the Nine Tails, who is already mountain-sized and capable of leveling cities with a swing of its tails. Even the complete body Susanoo, a skyscraper-sized chakra warrior, looks small beside it. When the statue moves, the battlefield itself bends to its presence. But size is only the beginning. Behind the statue, thousands of hands emerge in concentric rows, creating a divine, almost surreal image. The two main hands are clasped in prayer like a Buddha, a cruel irony given the destruction that follows. Each of those countless hands can strike independently, with enough force to pulverize stone, shatter defenses, and overwhelm enemies from every angle at once. Its versatility is what makes it truly terrifying. The statue can fight on Hashirama's behalf, shielding him from harm while he uses other jutsu. Its massive frame acts as an impenetrable wall, resistant even to tailed beast-level attacks thanks to sage chakra-infused wood. And unlike most colossal techniques, this one isn't slow or clumsy. The statue can detach from the sea of hands to move more freely, allowing it to chase down faster opponents. The requirements to use it are equally legendary. Hashirama had to enter Sage mode, perfectly balancing natural energy with his own chakra, a feat most shinobi can't attempt without turning to stone. On top of that, he possessed near-limitless chakra reserves and a life force so potent that his cells became the most coveted biological material in the shinobi world. Even Madara, with access to Hashirama's cells and senjutsu, never replicated this technique at such scale. That's why this statue defines wood release. It's offense, defense, suppression, and psychological domination rolled into one. The moment it appears, the battle is already decided. Hashirama's true several thousand hands isn't just a jutsu, it's the ultimate reminder of why no one dared challenge the first Hokage. Lava release. So lava release is one of those elements that doesn't get nearly enough screen time, but when it shows up, it's absolutely devastating. We're dealing with molten rock here, stuff that can melt through basically anything, and the two main techniques we need to compare are both insane in their own right. You've got the Flower Fruit Mountain, which is Son Goku's signature move, used by his Jinchuriki Roshi, and then there's the Scorching Stream Rock technique, which is more commonly seen but still incredibly deadly. The Flower Fruit Mountain is essentially creating a volcano on command. Roshi transforms into his tailed beast state, and then he just erupts. The explosion sends molten lava flying in every direction, creating this massive flower-shaped blast pattern that covers an enormous area. The technique specifically states that this lava can melt anything in its path, and when you're talking about a volcanic eruption level of heat and volume, that's not an exaggeration. The area of effect alone puts this technique in a tier above most other lava release jutsu, because you're not just attacking one target or one direction, you're basically turning the entire battlefield into a hellscape. Now compare that to the Scorching Stream Rock technique. This one is more focused and tactical. The user spits out a massive amount of lava that rapidly solidifies into multiple boulders while they're still molten hot, and these boulders get launched at high speed toward the target. The advantage here is precision and volume. You're firing off dozens of these molten projectiles in quick succession, covering a wide area, and because they're moving fast and there's so many of them, they're extremely hard to dodge. Each boulder can melt through most defenses on contact, so even if you block one, there are 10 more coming right behind it. But there's one thing that makes Flower Fruit Mountain so much more impressive. It requires Roshi to be in his transformed state, which means he's channeling Son Goku's chakra directly. This is a Four Tails powered technique. This isn't something a regular shinobi could ever pull off, even if they had lava release. This is tailed beast level destruction, which automatically puts it in a different category. The Scorching Stream Rock technique is powerful, don't get me wrong. It's versatile, it's effective, and multiple ninja have used it successfully in combat. But when you compare creating a dozen molten boulders versus creating an entire volcanic eruption, the scale difference is enormous. One technique could theoretically take out a small group of enemies or destroy some fortifications. The other one is an extinction-level event for anyone caught in its radius. If you're choosing the strongest lava release technique, you're choosing the one that can literally alter the landscape and force entire armies to relocate. That's Flower Fruit Mountain. And honestly, it's not even close when you factor in the raw destructive power and battlefield dominance it provides. Storm Release. Alright, Storm Release is one of the rarest Kekkei Genkai in the entire series. And when we're talking about the strongest technique, there's really only one answer that makes sense. Sure, Laser Circus looks absolutely incredible with those multiple beams of energy shooting out in every direction, and the ability to control their trajectory mid-flight is genuinely impressive. But when you stack it against Sage Art, Storm Release Light Fang, we're comparing a flashy light show to an actual speed of light death beam that can cut through anything. Let me break down why Light Fang is on a completely different level. This technique fires a thin, concentrated stream of light directly from the user's mouth, and here's the critical part that people sometimes overlook. It moves at the actual speed of light. The databooks explicitly state it's impossible to dodge, and when you understand what that means physically, you realize just how broken this technique is. Light travels at roughly 186,000 miles per second. By the time your brain even registers that Madara has opened his mouth, the beam has already passed through you. There is no reaction time. There is no blocking it. You either weren't in its path to begin with, or you're already cut in half. Now, some people might argue that because Madara used this technique after becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, it should be classified as a Six Paths technique rather than a pure storm release jutsu. But here's the thing that matters. The technique is specifically listed as Sage Art. Storm Release Light Fang. It's Storm Release enhanced with Senjutsu Chakra, which is fundamentally different from Six Paths power. Senjutsu has been around since way before the Six Paths stuff became relevant in the series. What Madara did was take Storm Release and amp it with natural energy, creating something that could function at a level beyond normal ninjutsu. Compare this to Laser Circus, which shoots multiple beams that can change direction and hit several targets. That's tactically useful, especially against multiple opponents, or when you need precision to avoid hitting hostages. But those beams are still energy projectiles that can potentially be blocked or avoided. They don't move at light speed, they don't cut through truth-seeking balls, and while they can pin down enemies, they're not instant kill attacks the way Light Fang is. The fact that Light Fang is described as impossible to dodge should really end this debate right there. Boiled Release. Boil Release is one of the rarest and deadliest Kekkei Genkai in Naruto, combining fire and water to create corrosive mist or scalding steam. And when we talk about the strongest Boil Release jutsu, we've basically got two techniques from Meiterumi, the skilled mist technique and steam explosion. And honestly, this is totally not a fair competition at all. Steam explosion sounds impressive. You release a massive cloud of boiling steam around yourself, burning everything nearby. It's a defensive-offensive hybrid move, pretty perfect for close-range combat. But that's literally all it does. It burns things. That's it. In a universe where fire release can roast entire forests, a jutsu that only boils and burns doesn't really stand out. Now the skilled mist technique? This is straight-up nightmare fuel. Mei creates a cloud of highly acidic mist that can melt bodies and even break down chakra-based defenses. And here's the absolutely insane part. It affected Sasuke's Susanoo, the absolute defense that's supposed to be untouchable. What makes the skilled mist straight up the strongest boil release jutsu is that it attacks on such a fundamental level that most defenses simply can't handle it. Physical armor? Melted. Chakra barriers? Nullified. It doesn't matter how strong your defense is when the defense itself is literally dissolving. And the user can also adjust the mist's pH level, which means Mei has complete control over how lethal it is. She can make it safe enough to avoid hurting allies, or crank it up to melt everything in sight. So yeah, the skilled mist technique is absolutely the undisputed strongest boil release jutsu. Explosion Release. Deidara's Explosion Release. Techniques embody his philosophy that art is an explosion. Two of his most infamous jutsu, C0 and C4, showcase radically different forms of destruction, sparking endless debate about which is stronger. C0 is Deidara's final trump card, a suicide technique unleashed when all else fails. He tears open the stitches on his chest to reveal a mouth connected to his heart, feeding it clay that transforms his entire body into a bomb. Chakra floods his veins, turning him into a living explosive. The detonation covers a staggering 10-kilometer radius, obliterating villages and reshaping landscapes. Its raw destructive power is unmatched. Nothing survives within range. However, C0's fatal drawback is that it kills Deidara too. It's a one-time, last-resort move with no tactical flexibility. Immense devastation, but zero survivability. In contrast, C4 demonstrates Deidara's genius. Designed to counter the Sharingan, it manifests as a giant clay clone that bursts into a cloud of invisible microscopic bombs. These particles infiltrate opponents through inhalation, entering the bloodstream. With a snap of Deidara's fingers, victims disintegrate at the cellular level, reduced to dust. Physical defenses, armor, and distance are useless once exposed. The psychological terror of dying simply by breathing elevates C4's impact. Moreover, it's versatile. Deidara can scale it down, as seen against Onoki, using smaller clay constructs with the same deadly effect. C0 embodies brute force annihilation, erasing everything in its path. C4 represents precision assassination, targeting individuals invisibly and leaving the environment intact. One is about overwhelming destruction, the other about unavoidable elimination. Which is truly ultimate depends on what you value, total devastation or guaranteed kill. Deidara's artistry wasn't just explosions, it was philosophy. Through C0 and C4, he proved destruction itself could be sculpted into different forms of art. Alright, that's it for today, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.